Hello and welcome everyone to the AI Impact Series. AI is much more than a buzzword as it permeates both our work lives and our personal lives. The cultural zeitgeist has shifted and we can't go long without someone referencing ChatGPT. Furthermore, AI is being used to create images and compose music, sparking discussion around the nature of art, creation, and authenticity. Now is the time to turn our attention to AI. I'm excited that SmartBrief's AI Impact Virtual Summit is back again this year, this time with a series of webinars that explore how AI is transforming work at the industry level. And today we are joined by thought leaders and industry insiders who will share how you should be thinking about AI in your own work and what it will take to make the most of it. Over the coming 4 sessions on AI, we'll be exploring how AI will likely impact the future in 4 key sectors: the future of work, the future of IT and security, the future of retail, and the future of education. Today, we kick off the series with a deep dive into the future of work for HR and anyone reshaping teams and workforces in the age of AI. You'll leave today's session armed with the ideas and insights that you need to make the most of the AI impact. My name is Mackenzie Puddisy from Future B2B, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this timely discussion today. This session is produced by SmartBrief, a part of Future B2B, and sponsored by Conduent. Now, if you've attended our megacasts, ecocasts, or summits in the past, you may notice a little bit different format on this series with a mix of keynote sessions, panel discussions, and guest speakers. This should make for a dynamic session today. In addition to myself, my friends and fellow moderators, Jess Steinbach, Scott Becker, and Keith Ward are here with us on live chat today. Okay, I just need to make sure you're all awake in the live out there. So why don't you find the questions tab in your console, and let's start out by saying hi, hello, bonjour, hola, aloha, or whatever greeting you'd like to send out to the community here with you today. As a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the session. Knock on wood, of course. That's not wood, but it's the best I get. Don't forget that a browser refresh should also get rid of the usual tech gremlins, but if not, just shoot a message in the questions tab and the future B2B crew and I will be here to help. Now, if you are working with AI already, there's an opportunity to win an award and get your project in the limelight. Cool, right? SmartBrief's newest innovation award is open for nominations from teams that are leading the development and application of AI to advance progress across industries. Launched in tandem with SmartBrief's AI Impact webinar series, the SmartBrief Innovation Awards in AI will recognize the most cutting edge solutions to business challenges in retail, IT, cybersecurity, education, and people management. Entrants may be in market or poised for market entry in 2025, and submissions will be assessed based on the degree of innovation and business impact. Participating companies pay a fee to enter. Not all nominated products are winners. However, all nominees and winners will be featured in a program guide published after judging is completed in October. To learn more, go to the handouts tab where you can find a link outlining all of the details so that you can submit your application. The deadline to enter is September 20th, 2024. In addition to the incredibly valuable information coming at you today, I've got something else for you that's exciting. We have got some prizes. Today, you could win one of three $300 Amazon gift cards that we will be giving away to 3 lucky winners who are here, present, and live with us on the webinar. You can find the full T's and C's linked in the handouts tab if you have any questions about that. Alrighty, with all that housekeeping behind us, I believe we are ready to rock. I'm sure you are all ready and pumped up to get started, so please join me in welcoming to the stage Melissa Turner, who is the VP of Content at SmartBrief, who will be interviewing Nicole Bradford, Executive in Residence for AI plus HI at the Society for Human Resource Management. Together, they'll explore the topic, the way to win in the age of AI. Melissa, I will pass things over to you and Nicole. Take it away.
Nicole, it is a pleasure to be speaking with you today about this very top of mind topic. We appreciate you joining to share your perspective and expertise.
Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate you inviting me.
All right, well, to start, Nicole, why don't you tell us about your role as an executive in residence for AI plus HI at SHRM?
I'm really excited to tell you about that because I think that the AI plus HI is human intelligence, human ingenuity, that's really critical for what this generation of AI enablement looks like. And so, what I'm doing there after 20 years in tech, I'm working with SHRM on thinking through their policy and products and positioning on really unlocking the expertise of HR as the circulatory system of an organization to really help get human centered AI adoptions. And I'm passionate about human centered AI adoptions because those are the ones that, one, work best, especially for generative AI. And those are also the ones that really put humans at the center of what we're building. And therefore, I think is the way that we get to what we're really wanting and needing for the future of work.
Wonderful. Looking forward to learning more about that today. I want to start by just kind of getting a sense of the landscape now. So, how are most organizations testing AI today, and what kind of results should they expect?
Mm. So there's a few different types of AI. Machine learning and predictive AI have been with us for a long time. But today, now, when most people say AI, they're thinking about generative AI, so the chat GPTs and the co-pilots of the world. And so while the previous forms of AI are still on a steady march of recreating organizations, where we're at now is like, what are we doing with this generative AI iteration? What's different about generative AI is that it's the AI that people who work across the organizations can actually touch. It's the AI that they can automate their workflows, that they can start to take away from some of the tasks that are a part of work, but not really what they signed up for. So that's what people are really focused on now. And what's happening in enterprise is there was last year, the focus really was what is AI? And then organizations really started to, you know, attempt to bring it in and to experiment. So you have a lot of experimentation. But even beyond that, more than the organizations, workers have been experimenting. The number of workers who are bringing, we call it BYOAI, bringing their own AI to work. And that's Microsoft estimated that a large number of knowledge workers were already using it. On the enterprise side, what we're seeing is experimentation, where people are setting up the sandboxes so that their employees can experiment or get to know the technology a little bit better in a safe way. And then early experiments. And though McKinsey just put out a report a little while ago that most organizations don't have more than 6 pilots running, and they consider that to be the threshold for indicating that a company is really going after it. So we're in these early stages, early days. People are still figuring it out, and you have to get the internal fluency up to a certain level before you can really get the kind of experimentation that helps you understand which pilots you should use.
Well, you've written about the disconnect between executive expectations and employee experiences when it comes to AI implementation. I want to ask you to elaborate on this kind of fake productivity phenomenon and explain why it's a concern. And then maybe you can talk about how evolving workflows can address it.
Upwork last month put out a great piece of research on the difference between executive perception and employee experiment experience. And the net of it was that all of the executives, like 90 plus executives, 90% plus, felt like it was really improving productivity, while 77% of employees said that actually all that had happened was that their workload had increased. And they have a lot of other interesting data in there. But what it really shows is a perception gap. And my assessment, and also um, Kelly Monahan, who did the research or led the research for Upwork Research Institute our assessment is that, without actually changing the workflows, without actually changing how work gets done, how teams are organized, and what we actually consider to be the higher order work, without doing that, it's sort of like opening a dam into a small channel. And it's not actually getting deep, deep productivity increases that come from actually redefining the workflow.
Well, we're going to talk about some thinking that executives can bring. One thing I want to ask you about: you talk about the importance of internal AI champions in AI adoption. How does this approach differ from traditional top-down implementation, and what kind of benefits does it bring?
I want to break it into two pieces. First, just to explain what a champion is. So, we took a look at what had made the last generation of implementations really work. Because if you look at the history of AI implementations on predictive and machine learning, there are some legendary fails. If you look at the history of transformation, there are some legendary fails. And AI is both a massive technology shift and it's a major transformation. So it's sort of like the uh, the odds of failure, are even higher potentially. So it begged the question and made it worthwhile to look at, well, what in the past, what succeeded and what were the characteristics of it. So even in the machine learning and predictive implementations, the ones that are considered to be really big successes like UPS and several other organizations, they had a person. And I find it really inspiring because that person was not necessarily a technical person. Often they weren't. They were someone who just really understood the business, had vertical and horizontal relationships, and did all of the human work to get buy-in, to explain to people what was in it for them, and just sort of that long, long process. So for generative AI, this is even more important because the shifts in the workflows, the knowledge of what to actually automate, what to actually enhance, and what to keep as is, the people who really know it are the people doing the work right now. Like they're the ones who are doing it. And so, even more so than a machine learning implementation happening in a corner and then you need to get people to adopt it. This is like it actually is their work. So they're the ones who actually know it and they're the ones who can really help you tighten and shape the business architecture to get you to real productivity. And so there's a lot of similarities to the past, but this one is also different. There's a major consulting firm where a colleague of mine does only AI implementations. And one of their takeaways is that 70% of it is people and only 30% of it is tech. And so that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're seeing from other organizations, that it really is, it's just sort of, sounds old fashioned, but it's still a people issue.
Well, it sounds really important, and it really clarifies that AI plus HI model that you're working toward.
Yeah, yeah, and that's inspiring to me actually. The that organizations are starting to figure this out, like the really leading organizations, the ones who were first into the pool. Many of them were already innovative organizations, and when you look at the characteristics of very innovative organizations, they're very collaborative environments. They really think about what does it mean for teams to work together, how do you unlock human potential. And so those organizations came into generative AI understanding it a bit better than others. And then the next group into the pool were people who were committed to not being left behind, but they were not necessarily the most innovative organizations. And the early feedback is coming back that they're understanding that it's a people issue. There's a organization that I spoke to someone the other day, and they They weren't approaching it like a people issue. They, for example, only had HR involved for compliance, and it it did not work. And so now they have a full team that includes every major stakeholder in the business that is helping, where they're all working together to figure out what does our AI enhanced future as an organization look like. So I would predict that I think probably by the end of next year, everyone who's paying attention will understand that it isn't it isn't just a technology, it's a social, behavioral, cultural shift that's required to get the most out of it.
Well, that may be a good lead into the next question I want to ask you. You talked about business architecture. So the concept of this roadmap is central to successful AI strategies. How does it help align AI initiatives with organizational goals while still allowing employees to experiment?
Mm. Well, so that is going back to your first question about fake productivity. One of the ways you get to the real productivity is that you have these tools solve problems that actually make a big difference for the business. So, one of the mistakes or challenges that I see organizations having is that, there's lots of experimentation, which is way better than no experimentation. There's lots of experimentation, but it isn't necessarily in the things that will fundamentally change the business. And so, with business architecture as a guiding light, then you shared areas. And this is actually Microsoft's model. This is how they did their internal AI implementation, which I think was just so well done. But you share the areas of focus and then you point experimentation towards it. You don't tell them how, you just, you don't say do it like this, but they need guidance as to what areas matter the most. The senior leadership is the one, of each overall, and then each function. They're the ones who do understand where the business is strong, where the business is weak. And so those are the areas where you point and direct towards the areas, the what, but not the how, and then sort of unleash your employee population and give them permission and agency to experiment around those areas.
Well, I want to give our audience some more kind of tactics they can take away. One thing I want to ask you about is hero cases, something you talk about as a key part of purposeful AI implementation. Can you explain what they are and how organizations can identify and develop them?
So, from the article that you read, the hero case is also from the Microsoft case that I just did. And I think it's so interesting because their process was three steps. The first step was raising the AI fluency in the organization and just the technology fluency, and helping people really see that they had agency. The second part was tying that to the business architecture and directing their employees to experiments towards refining the business architecture. And what's so interesting is only after they had identified the areas that were going to be the most beneficial did they add in the co-pilots, like the full co-pilots. And so there were cases where they understood from start to finish at that point what they wanted to accomplish, how they thought it might go, so they could test against it and iterate. And so often, sometimes when people get a new toy or a new technology, they're excited about it, so they jump in, and it is important to get your feet wet. But a little bit after getting your feet wet, it's very important to identify the areas. What part of the pool do you need to be in? And then specifically, what are you trying to accomplish in that part of the pool and how will you know? And so a well defined use case.
Well, I want to go back to the notion of this being a people issue. You talked about involving HR. You alluded to the real importance of it. How do you see the role of HR in evolving in the AI era, particularly in terms of becoming architects of the employee experience?
Well, everyone in the AI era is going to have to become a value added strategist. Like that's everyone. It doesn't matter what department you're in. That is also true for HR. And then separately, HR is going to evolve into looking at the employee experience. And so the employee experience is not just, it's not whether or not you have um, it's not whether or not you have what your benefits are, or meaning like it's not whether or not you have a ping pong table. Like it's not that employee experience. It is, you know, believing in that people want to have a good experience at work. They want to work on things that they're passionate about. They want to work with people that are great to work with. They want to accomplish things. They want to accomplish things together. They want to find it easy to get into the culture of the organization. They want guidance in that. They want support. So it's the employee experience isn't just employees wanting things. It's this deep human desire to enjoy one's work and all of the pieces that go with that. And so excuse me, leaders of the future are going to be able to and going to need to take a wider lens about that entire arc. And they're really the ones positioned to do it as well, because they own the HR service centers for learning and development and um, total rewards and all of those things, much of which are going to have a lot of AI coming into them. So they own those services centers, but then they also are the circulatory system of the organization, and they can really help the organization work through people to reinvent the workflows. And then the very last part is they're going to become really well versed in responsible AI and AI ethics for an organization. They're going to really need to understand it. And then they will partner with the CIO who will be doing or setting up the infrastructure. I think right now there's, in different parts of this change. There's some people who think that that might sit in the technology departments, and I would say the execution of it from a technology standpoint might sit in the technology departments, but the heart of it and
Mm.
how people think about it and feel about it and how they know how to collaborate together because they understand what the rules are for ethical and responsible implementation, that's going to come from HR, I believe.
Well, you may have started kind of taking us down this road already, but I want to think about our listeners today who are inspired by this, who want to implement a human-centered AI strategy in their organizations. For people who really truly want to reimagine work, what bones do they need to put in place, and are there some concrete early steps we can share with people?
The very first thing that everyone has to do is raise the AI fluency level in their organization. And you don't have to be Microsoft to do that. In order to do that, you do have to give people a space that is safe to experiment, and you have to encourage them to do it. And so these are the lower level experiments. They're not the ones where it's a full pilot. This is just getting people to feel comfortable and realize that this technology is for them and that they have agency with it. So that is like the number one thing. And so whether you're bringing in a co-pilot or something else, or having your IT team set up a enterprise instance of any of the major LLMs, it's getting your people on it because they can't imagine what they might do with it until they're using it. And so some very basic things people have done is they've done promptathons and other fun ways to get people to put their toe in the water. So that is the number one thing. The second thing that you need to do is think through your process to ensure that you're building trust. There's some interesting stats out there where I think last year Accenture did a survey, a study, and while most CEOs, it was like 95 to 100% of CEOs were certain that AI was going to transform the workforce and the workplace. Many of them didn't think that all the people could make the journey. But amongst employees, 85% of them thought with training they could develop the skills. 85% of them thought they kind of grasped it. And then 94% of them thought with training they could do it, but 95% of them did not believe that leadership would make decisions that had their best interest at heart as well. And so there's a big trust gap, and trust is really important to get the employees help to refine the business architecture so you can get the changes that will actually allow you to grow your business, make more money, like all the things that people want it for. With generative AI, your people are essential to that. So those would be the first two things: is like get everybody playing and make sure that think about what it takes to build trust. And then there's some other more advanced steps, but those would be number one and number two.
Well, that's great. I want to close just by kind of looking forward a little bit. You talked about the notion of kind of empowering joy among professionals, and you, you're helping me think differently about what this can look like. Let's talk about, if we think about successful human-centered AI transformations broadly, how could they impact the future of work and society at large?
The future doesn't happen by chance. We build it. We are the ones who are building the future. And that we believe, there's two things that we need from AI. The first is we need real economic and productivity growth. You know, our country needs it, our economy needs it. Like we need the real benefits. And so that's not just using AI to write better emails. That's nice, but that's not where the productivity growth comes from. It's really using AI in two ways. One, to change industries that are big contributors to economic growth. So, really shaping science, material science, having deep breakthroughs. And we're at the beginning of LLMs that are starting to be trained on science. So we need deep breakthroughs that allow us to have the breakthroughs that will drive our economy. The second part we need with that is we need the organizations that are a part of those industries to be reinvented and reorganized so they are, more productive, more efficient, and greater contributors to the worldwide economy, but also to the US economy. Like that's what we need. And economists are still waiting and watching to see what happens because we haven't seen that deep economic productivity growth yet. And so it's really important for companies to, and especially in the US, for companies to have successful implementations because their combined contribution to US GDP, it matters. Second is that it's from growth, business growth from successful implementations that will create more jobs. Like that, it comes from growth. They have to be successful in their transformations to have the buffer to be able to grow into new markets with new products, create new things. And that's where the jobs come from. And so, they're not going to come just from efficiencies. And efficiencies are often a lever that you can only pull once or twice. And then, what's left? And I mean, in terms of sort of like, getting rid of workforce and things like that. And so we need successful implementations. And then the second part is, what is work? One of the things that was so interesting also about the Microsoft implementation is that the co-pilots, like a real powerful use of a co-pilot, it affirms for a worker their value because it needs your expertise. It needs your insight to be the most powerful it can be. It comes from the questions that you ask and the way that you prompt and reprompt and the way that you think about what you know. And so at the end of their and it's not a linear process. It turns out that it's a circle, but once they got into that last part of actually applying the co-pilots, the people realized that they were essential. Like they were essential to a good outcome, not tangential, but essential. And so, you know, that kind of understanding of one's own value. And then when the efficiencies come in and allow you to work more efficiently with your other colleagues of extremely high value, that's when it gets fun. We have an engagement issue in corporations around the world, actually, where people are sort of, work doesn't feel good. And that's, I heard the other day someone describe work as what you hope to do plus all the things you didn't sign up for. And so there's a lot of that, right? And so the next level up is getting rid of the things that you didn't sign up for so that the value added things, the things where your expertise and your value and you get to do that with people who are also doing that. That's when it becomes really fun. And I think the last thing else I would say about that is I'm really thinking a lot about what leadership looks like in the age of AI, how it's going to change, what's going to be different about it. We've always had a need for leadership, but these changes require more leadership and a little bit of a different kind, because you have to be able to create trust and you have to be able to create an environment where people are constantly experimenting, which means they're also failing. And how do you make that okay? And so it's really, I think it's about to get very interesting.
Well, Nicole, what a fabulous note to end on. What a great message to share with our audience today. I am looking forward to to that future you described, and so now we will continue the work of being on that path and shifting to this human centered mindset. Thank you very much for everything that you've shared today and for joining us.
Thank you, Melissa.
Wow, Melissa and Nicole, that was a great discussion. I love that statement. It's not just a technological shift, it's a cultural and behavioral shift. As much as we want to implement AI, we still need to train it with the proper information. Just as we may like to hire a new employee to help lighten the workload, but there is a lot of work that goes into that knowledge transfer. And from what Nicole was saying, businesses now have to give that knowledge transfer to AI in order to get real economic results. ChatGPT can scan the internet for data, read articles, they can often combine and iterate on what info is fed into them, but AI can't always innovate, and they may not be privy to the unique needs and workflows of your organization. Or at least, not quite yet. Anyways, food for thought, and indeed, I'm sure it's encouraging to many to hear that we as humans still have value. Personally, I love anthropology and specifically this intersection of AI and daily human routines. So I am incredibly optimistic about how AI can make our lives easier and add joy to our routines. But I also recognize that there is a lot of work to be done upfront to make that favorable result come to fruition. Again, big thank you to both Melissa and Nicole for that discussion. Now, I've got our first prize to give away, and a quick reminder that you must be present at the webinar to win. The first of three $300 Amazon gift cards is going out to Melissa Davis from Maryland. Congratulations, Melissa. We will be in touch after today's webinar about how to claim your prize. Alrighty, well, let's keep things clipping along or else AI is gonna outpace us. Haha, excuse my dad joke, everyone. I'm not even a dad. Anyway, next up in today's roster of industry experts is Bill Clayman, CEO and founder of Apollo US. Bill will shed light on hiring in the age of AI and leading through transformation. Bill, so great to have you on today. I'm looking forward to hearing from you on this topic. So, why don't you take it away?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very special future B2B conversation we're going to be having today, the AI Impact Series, AI and the Future of Work. And our topic of conversation today is hiring and working in the age of AI and leading through transformation. Um, I'm really excited to have this chat right now with you because what we've been doing is sort of my gosh, we've been at the forefront of seeing how some of these AI solutions have been impacting workers, hiring, how they interact with AI. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. My name is Bill Clayman. I am the CEO and co-founder of Apollo.us. I am also the AFCOM Data Center World Program Chair and a contributing editor to Data Center Knowledge, Data Center Frontier, Information Week, and a few other really cool publications. Now, this is going to be the only time you're going to hear about Apollo because it's super relevant to this conversation. Okay, so Apollo, at least in the AI industry, is the industry's only multi-tenant AI and machine learning platform. What does that mean? It means that we have the unique capability where other AI and ML platforms were built for the for the enterprise. We at Apollo were built for the data center to consume to then support the enterprise, which means that we have a very unique purview and uh, visibility into the type of workloads that are being used on our platform. Now, obviously, we don't see the data, all of that stuff is multi-tenant, but we do get a chance to sometimes see the use cases. And oh my gosh, but buckle up. I hope you're comfortable. I hope you have your favorite drink in front of you. I promise I'm not drinking any more coffee. I've actually switched to water. This is just natural excitement. I'm going to share this with you. We're going to talk about hiring and working in the age of AI, what it looks like to transform, a better understanding of what artificial intelligence is doing to the workforce. Now, please understand, I'm not just going to talk about the old school statistical pattern recognition AI. We're really going to dive into the practical applications of how artificial intelligence is impacting the future of work. But before we dive into what's going to be a very, very exciting conversation, we do need to set the stage a little bit. So, artificial intelligence, right? We're going to look at it from a then and now perspective. Now, do not glaze over if you're about to go to your Amazon shopping list. Come on back. This is not going to be a technical conversation. I promise you it's going to be more of just level setting so you can understand why this is impacting the workforce and hiring, human resources, and sort of everything in between. When when you and I and everybody else start to think about artificial intelligence, especially if we do understand what it means, really it's when you hear AI, think statistical pattern matching. And it also is really, really good at that statistical pattern matching because that's what it's designed to do is spot those patterns better than any human could do. And especially when we're being tasked to do really complex tasks that were once performed by human beings, like communication, for example, that can now be done by AI, or like playing chess, for example. And the term artificial intelligence is often interchangeably used with things like deep learning and machine learning. Now, that's just for a high level perspective, so you understand. Now, the reality behind artificial intelligence, and this is the truth, is that well, it's been around for like a really long time. There's really nothing too crazy about it. We've been using AI for quite some time, whether it's on your watch or your phone, or if you have a smart device somewhere in your home. It's learning about you and it's asking you questions and it's trying to better understand how to serve you based on patterns and statistics and how you interact with this engine. Now, understanding all of this and knowing that AI has been with us, whether generative or not, for a long time, what the heck has changed? Like what's the biggest difference? Okay, everybody, we're gonna go on a little bit of a trip. Okay, follow me on this for a second. So, one of the most important things that I want everyone to understand is that what we're experiencing right now is actually less of a technology shift, and this includes workforces and people in hiring, and more of a shift in humanity. Follow me for just a second, everybody. Um, when when Alta Vista, I can't believe I'm about to date myself. When Alta Vista came out, that was in 1995. In 1996, Ask Jeeves came out, and the first time we were able to ask Google a question was September of 1998. All right. Now, ever since that date, for the past 30 or so years, you and I have been conditioned to interact with data in a very specific manner. You ask it a question, just like I've got here right here in Google, for example, and you get a pretty blue link. That's it. That's how we've been doing it for the past 30 years. If you think about it, that's literally how we've been conditioned to interact with information. Here's a question. Here is a bunch of links that I think are most accurate and relevant to you, but you got to pick the link because these are the ones that I'm going to provide you. And whether it's in SharePoint, whether it's in internal searching systems, it's always been that darn good old blue link. Well, full stop. Ever since the invention and the release of ChatGPT, all of that has changed. For the first time ever, folks, we can ask a question of our data and get a complex, wholly original conscious answer back. I use the word conscious very loosely. I'm not talking about Skynet. I'm talking conscious in the sense of it understanding your question and applying that to a wholly original response. Guys, this has never happened before in our entire existence. And what I really want to point out, and this is the most important part here, is that every single one of you, every person listening to this right now, if you use Google or Bing or your favorite search engine, your responses are no longer a blue link, are they? They're a generative AI response. That's how quickly this shift has happened. And this, like I said, is a shift in humanity. How we interact with data has totally and fundamentally changed, and it's not going to stop. It's going to continue impact organizations, how we work, how we live, eat, and play, and everything in between. Because the reality is, we have never seen growth like this in any other application ever before. And this is how long it took. It took ChatGPT 5 days to reach 1 million active users. Now, obviously, there's so much more right now, but that's how fast they were able to get to that metric, that actual number. Now, the reality is there's only one other application that reached 1 million users faster than ChatGPT. Drum roll, it was Threads, right? And if you're like, what is Threads? I'm not sure what it is exactly, right? It reached its 1 million users and then kind of fizzled out, whereas ChatGPT has stayed. Now, what is the fundamental difference between old school traditional AI and this modern era of artificial intelligence that you and I and everybody else keeps talking about? And, unfortunately, some of you might be sick of it, but unfortunately, also, it's not going anywhere. So, when we start to take a look today at artificial intelligence, we understand that this generative AI era is where the system can now synthesize part or all of a creative work. Okay. So algorithms such as ChatGPT or GPT, the generative pre-trained transformer, that's the architecture, can be used to create new content, including audio, code, images, text, simulations, and videos. More so, recent breakthroughs in the field have potential to drastically change the way we approach content creation, interaction with data, etc. Now, what's really important here, just as a final point about this, is that GPT and OpenAI, well, they're not the only foundational models that are out there. Very recently, you probably saw the release of Llama from Meta, Llama 3.1 405B. That's their large language model that's openly available for people to use. Now, that's extraordinary because for the first time ever, individuals, organizations can take this model, privatize it, and use it wholly for their own private architecture without having to send information to the cloud. What does that really mean? That means we're going to see more use cases and more applications around these technologies, which brings us to the core of this conversation, to the thesis of what we're going to be talking about. How is this going to impact people's jobs, hiring, and so on? Because when ChatGPT and OpenAI and all of this first hit mainstream, especially when we saw 3 and 3.5. Well, we got a lot of this. AI is going to take my job. And listen, actually, some of you may have been pretty happy about it. Hey, I don't mind. AI is going to take my job. And I love this image because you really can take this from two different perspectives. You can be really sad about it, thinking that artificial intelligence is going to replace you entirely, or you can be happy about it because you're seeing the beautiful mountains and the scenery, in the sense that AI isn't going to necessarily take your job. It's going to make your job a whole lot easier. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. My platform, Apollo, you're welcome to check it out. We convert data centers to AI powerhouses, which in turn serve customers. And they could be HR firms, marketing, all sorts of different kinds of organizations. And like I said earlier, we see the kinds of systems that they deploy on there, and they are always going to need people. And we're going to be talking about why are they going to be requiring the presence of human beings? Because I'll share a little secret with you, not a big secret. Large language models dream, and unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go into what that means. Even though it's super fascinating, you can find me online or on LinkedIn. I can explain what that means. And ChatGPT likes to hallucinate, which is a great example that I wanted to put right here in front of you. What is the world record for crossing the English Channel entirely on foot? I'm gonna give that second to sort of marinate. Now, it gave me an answer. Holy cow, it actually looks like a real answer. But if you take a look at the bottom, it is typically done by a combination of swimming or walking or only swimming, as it is only attempted by professional swimmers and open water swimmers. You can't cross the English Channel on foot unless they somehow drain it or you walk along the bottom, I guess. But this answer, a hallucination, looks accurate, but is certainly not. This is why we're going to need people. And this next slide is going to be one of the most important ones as we bridge the conversation into hiring and working with AI in this age. OpenAI recently released their image of the future, an AI future. And this is not old school artificial intelligence. This is this stuff right now, generative AI. So for everyone in this call thinking that AI is about to take my position, my job, my role, pump your brakes. That's not what it's here to do. Take a look at this list, everybody. And this is a really, really important list. I want everyone to sort of internalize it. So this was reported from Bloomberg recently, and OpenAI released this, and they said that there's 5 levels of generative AI that we have to worry about, or at least think about, right? There's level one, and I'll go ahead and read this, right? Chatbots, reasoners, agents, innovators, and level 5, organizations where an AI can do the work of an entire organization. Yikes. Hey, squad, where do you think we are on this list? Where if you were to guess, where do you think we are? Give you a second, right? Some of you might be typing it into the chat window, which is good. I like the interaction. We're at level 1. We're barely scratching the surface of level 1. When ChatGPT came out, the initial response was, "Oh my god, this is the coolest thing in the world. It's going to cure cancer, save the world, bring in peace." And then we, like I said earlier, quickly realized that large language models dream and ChatGPT likes to hallucinate. We are barely at the level 1 having AI with conversational language and intelligence. We are at a long game and we are only getting started, which brings us to the topic of conversation, right? Hiring and working in the age of AI and leading through transformation. So this is where I want everyone to sort of come back here for a second. Take a drink. And let's keep this going, because what I'm going to talk about next is going to be the types of systems that I see running on Apollo within our data center partners, what we've seen in terms of AI transformation, how hiring has changed, and most importantly, at the very end, I'm actually going to give you some use cases, some real world end user enterprise use cases of where people, both in hiring and working with AI, are leveraging these systems to make their job a lot easier. So, the first thing you need to understand, and I said this earlier, please don't think of this as a fad. If you want to know what a fad is, this is this little fidget spinner that's on my desk that keeps me entertained. That's a fad, right? But this is I can't believe I just brought that on screen. This is as much of a fad as it is when we stopped riding horses and started driving cars, when we stopped taking trains and started flying in airplanes. This is a massive paradigm shift that we're experiencing in our lives and in the workplace. It's just that's just how it is. So a part of what we're seeing right now is obviously AI automation, where we're capable of automating routine tasks, not just that pattern-based recognition, but automated routine tasks which enable employees to focus on really much more important creative concepts within the business, while those tasks are both automated and using generative AI to create wholly original outcomes and output, which, by the way, the person still has to review. So now we're allowing this individual to focus on really much more of that high value type of work. business intelligence unlocking. Now, this is a big one where AI enables organizations to really analyze vast amounts of data to extract actionable insights, proactively inform decision making, and actually improve sales and improve customer service. Now, we're going to talk about what that actually looks like from a couple of really cool use cases that we've designed and what that actually means. And the evolution of decision making. Remember, we now have systems that can ingest pictures, audio, video, text, and work with you to make better decisions, from everything from patient healthcare to filling up a hotel room to improving your customer service in a restaurant. Remarkably, artificial intelligence is, at least from this perspective, is a foundational technology that can impact every type of workplace. I really do mean that, to the extent of like evolutions of decision making. For example, we're working with a coffee. I'm sorry, not a coffee shop. A car wash. We're working with a car wash. And check this out, you guys. So the car wash has cameras and all of it's digital. And what we're capable of doing is adjusting all of that information, all of the videos that are coming in. And now the employees have a completely different decision making process because their generative AI system will tell them, hey, you should run these promotions during the morning because that's when you get all the luxury vehicles. Or it can tell you that these three employees work much more efficiently, for example, in the afternoon or at lunch or beforehand, or if they're working with different people. So these systems aren't just looking for patterns, they're giving you new, novel ways to actually improve your business. The evolution of decision making with generative AI is extraordinary, which brings me to the next point. AI isn't here to make the decision for you, and it's not here to replace people. Every single instance that I've had, from legal firms to hotels to publicly traded marketing organizations to the startup organizations that we work with, we've built systems for collaboration and enhancement. And that's really what we're seeing. It's collaboration over replacement, where we're designing these systems to augment human capabilities and working alongside employees to enhance their productivity and not to replace them. And we'll go over what that means in just a second. But this fundamentally changes the role of the individual, where they enhance it. They can manage these monotonous tasks, like I talked about earlier, and employees can now focus much more deeply into their roles. And remarkably, from a psychological perspective, create a sense of ownership and innovation because they are a part of the technology engine. And what's cool about this is that this type of AI is for everyone: sales, marketing, healthcare professionals, nurses, people working in a car wash, or a barista can use these technologies to actually enhance their role. And most importantly, human creativity is unleashed because you're no longer working with web forms, Excel spreadsheets. You're working with a data engine that can respond to you, that can collaborate with you, they can give you ideas. And so there is a massive impact that happens with the employee experience because of AI. You boost engagement because, again, employees don't necessarily want to go into an Excel spreadsheet or these old school web applications to type in a thought. When they can type something into a GPT like architecture and get a stream of thoughts back, it's extraordinary. And it also improves job satisfaction because it makes their job easier. Now, I'm going to stop here for just a second because obviously the collaborative part is really important. I'm going to give you an idea. We're working with this engineering firm. It's a car manufacturer. And the challenge for them is that their engineers have to look at different storage repositories to answer the same question. And that's actually a pretty big challenge for them because there's got PDF files, computer automated drawings, and they're literally everywhere. Now, this information is super proprietary. They can't send this stuff into the cloud, but they created their own AI data repository and their own GPT like interface. They took all of their CAD drawings, their PDF files, their technical documentation, and ingested it, put it into this data architecture. And now an engineer can go in and say, hey, I need to put a lock onto this door of this specific make and model of this vehicle, and I'm not sure how to do this. Can you give me some guidance? Instead of going through 3 different folders trying to find a drawing or a computer automated design, this gives them a conscious, logical response saying, here's how you do it. Here's some of the recommendations. Here's some notes from previous engineers doing the exact same thing. And here are the reference documents as well as the computer automated design drawings that you need to make this happen. What else can I help you with? That's how cool this technology is, where we've revolutionized how we interact with this information. And obviously, what we've done because of this is we're reframing how jobs are being done and challenging professionals to become better. Remember, we talked about AI absolutely evolves the job role where it necessitates the adaptation of certain job skills. You're going to need to learn how this works. You're going to need to learn about data privacy and ethics to make sure you're not uploading the wrong things. You're going to need to make sure that your skills development continues with using these technologies and understanding that they're not here to replace you. They're here to augment what you're doing effectively. And again, ethical considerations at the forefront. Listen, when OpenAI first came out, and this is a real use case, there was a doctor who used ChatGPT to write really compelling, amazing letters to insurance agencies on behalf of their patients to get things like, to get billing done, to push forward a claim. It was extraordinary. The bad news is that this doctor was uploading really, really horribly private patient information, violating pretty much the entire handbook of HIPAA into an openly, publicly available model, which, to be perfectly blunt, that information is now being used to train that large foundational model. So that's a pretty big no no. But in that sense, you have to learn, what data am I uploading? Where is it going? How do I build accountability and transparency? And in the age of hiring in AI, let's pump the brakes here for a second and talk about it. Okay. AI in recruitment has really changed the game. You're reshaping how companies attract, select talents, automate the searching and the sourcing, even looking at resumes from a different perspective. But this statement is so important, while AI can streamline hiring, it's crucial to address biases inherent in AI systems to ensure fair and inclusive hiring practices. Can't stress this enough. Generative AI was once used to basically use facial recognition. And my goodness, it was actually racially biased because it was created by a certain type of people. And unfortunately, they didn't do a good job creating racial diversity. That's a serious problem. Artificial intelligence, non-beknownst to itself, can become biased. So you need to make sure you're monitoring that and making sure that you are creating an environment that is using AI to support your hiring practices, but certainly doesn't replace it. Now, there are going to be new skills requirements in the age of AI, especially for hiring, where you're shifting the demands towards tech savvy individuals, adaptable individuals who can use these technologies to be more of a literate digital expert in obviously a digital era. Now, we're almost up on time. I want to show you some of these success stories. So we at Apollo, like I said, we're a foundation. We are the factory upon which others come and build their solutions. But to that extent, we have seen success stories in how people leverage AI across all of these different kinds of verticals and industries. I'll give you a couple of examples just because we have some time. There is a reseller in the IT field, and if somebody, let's say Bill Clayman, calls this reseller and says, "I need detailed pricing sheets for all of these locations for data centers, their telecom services, storage, et cetera, et cetera." It takes this rep 10 hours to create a detailed pricing sheet to send out to me. Now we take that template, we put it into generative AI. Gets where it gets really cool. This salesperson now has a chat GPT like window, not an Excel spreadsheet, not a silly web application, but an actual window. They type in a stream of thoughts, right, as they're talking to the customer, and all of a sudden, that template comes back 80% complete. And we got to that point 70 to 80% complete. We said that we can get to that point and still be 99% accurate. Now, we've taken that 10-hour process down to about 5 minutes plus an extra hour, hour and a half for the sales rep to review and actually make sure everything is accurate. Now, that's not the only template they have. They also have around network and storage and buildings and all the stuff. Now they're going to have a nice little template repository where all of their salespeople can click on one, two, multiple pricing spreadsheets and get really powerful templates almost instantly that they have to make some minor adjustments around. Now, that is an augmentation factor and it's super, super powerful. Here's another really cool one. I had to block some stuff off, but this is a multinational cosmetics firm. We did this, we built this model for them. In this situation, this is just a typical rep, basically can now sit down and type in here. You can see where the message, tell me what I should recommend for this individual. And all of a sudden, this organization saw their sales increase by 30 to 35% because these sales agents were much more accurate in how they recommend different services and how they recommend different solutions, for example. And even to the extent we test this stuff out, this individual say, and I need to give me some birthday greetings. This architecture literally will give you the product that you need, best suited for this individual, and it'll give you some birthday greetings as well. That is the era that we have reached right now, hiring and working in the age of AI and leading to transformation. This is not scary. I know it's novel and it's nascent, and some of this stuff is just breaking through. And yes, there are massive shifts and paradigm shifts in the workplace and how you and I even interact with data. But the bottom line and the most important thing that I want everyone to think about here is that these systems are designed to augment people, collaborate, not replace. And when used properly, they can do extraordinary things in the age of hiring, and most of all, improving that employee experience and helping them foster more love for the organization, and most of all, more love for their role. Now, I believe that is all the time that we have. If you have any questions at all, find me on any of these social media channels. I love this conversation. I want to keep it going with you. If you have any questions around AI systems, how large language models work, what you can do with ChatGPT, etc., find me. We'll keep this conversation going. But meanwhile, to continue this very, very important chat, I'm going to pass it back to our moderator and enjoy the rest of the conversation. Thanks, everybody.
Bill, you have such an infectious energy. Thank you for walking us through that. I really enjoyed the arc of thought from where we came from to where we are now, and of course, what is likely next to come, and how we must adapt to make the most of it. Funny enough, I went for lunch a couple of weeks back with a friend, and she brought her 15-year-old niece with her. We ended up talking about how we used to use the internet growing up and how we didn't even have Google at one point. So when you brought up good old Ask Jeeves, I had a nostalgic trip. Aside from that, I really liked your real world examples of how data can be observed, collected, and leveraged by AI in a way that humans would struggle to keep up with. For example, the car wash marketing to their luxury car owners at a specific time of day. Hmm? Well, you both leave us feeling optimistic about AI, but also with a big dose of reality that we are still in stage one and we are still adapting to it. So thanks again. Pleasure to have you back, and can't wait till the next time. Now, I've got another prize to give away and a quick reminder that you must be present at the webinar to win. The next of the $300 Amazon gift cards is going out to Clay Farah from Oklahoma. Huge congrats to you, Clay. And as always, we'll reach out after the webinar about claiming your prize. Now, it is time for our third and final presenter today, who is here to wrap up this incredible session on the future of work through AI. We have Dennis Hill, PhD, chairperson and CEO of the International Association for HR Information Management. Dennis will be speaking about generative and collaborative AI's impact on emerging and submerging best practices in human capital management. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on to share your insights and perspective with us. So, Dennis, why don't you just take it away?
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today for the AI Summit and a wonderful opportunity to work with the Future of Work folk again. Just let me get right into this since the topic is really not just relevant, it's become relevant and it's going to remain a very, very important aspect of systems development, especially in the HR field and every field, as a matter of fact, for the foreseeable future. And that means pretty much everybody's career. The role of generative AI in modern HR really consists of a number of different things that would be more or less focused on the tasks in HR. That has been the primary focus to date. The introduction of generative AI and its capabilities into the HR space really has affected recruitment, onboarding, um, the development of the staff, normal transactional HR processes, even to the extent where we're talking about wellness programming, benefits management, and so forth. At the end of the day, the transactional approach that's being used by traditional or conventional generative AI, as we understand it today, is greater efficiencies in the organization itself, a great deal of personalization that is permitted because of the amount of data that's unique to each person that HR deals with, and therefore it can be processed in providing custom solutions. And then the scalability. The wonderful thing about AI is that it's a technology that's not only based in hardware and software, but in the overall systems architecture of the data it's working with. And today, with things like large language models and fairly sizable data warehouses, the ability to scale an AI solution all the way up from a startup company to a multinational enterprise is fairly easy to do. So revolutionary aspects of HR systems development has never been greater than since the pandemic hit a couple of years ago. Um, COVID basically put the need for HR and technology on the forefront of everyone's attention, and this contrasts to the tradition, which had always been sort of an evolutionary rate of adoption when it came to new technology. But HR has been taking the lead, and a lot of that information that we're managing in the HR space obviously is concerned with recruitment. Again, in the wake of COVID and the competitive aspects of the workforce marketplace. So some of the things that we've seen enhanced by AI to date, and this is just generative AI, is the automating of candidate sourcing and screening, coming up with personalized job matching, utilizing the information we're gathering off of job boards and in internal databases and trying to develop that around our custom needs within each organization. And then, of course, predictive analytics, not just for how the person will perform within the organization, but overall, do the predictive analytics prior to actually hiring the person give us more insight than, say, traditional profiling that used to be done with disc test and similar types of assessments. So generative AI is revolutionizing the way in which we recruit. But we're going to introduce you to a new word today, and that's this idea of collaborative AI. And what that simply means is collaborative AI is our systems that are designed to work alongside human beings, enhancing their capabilities by complementing the human skills rather than replacing them. So up until 2024, the approach has been fairly conventional, looking at the tasks that needed to be done redundantly and repeatedly with a certain compliance to standards and data. And that with collaborative AI now, we are looking at supplementing the human intuition that accompanies the HR professional. In other words, there's only so far in terms of the data analytics, whether they're predictive or performance enhancing, really doesn't matter. The fact is that the analytics themselves only give you a limited insight into the individual that even complicated body reading and facial recognition programs today just don't seem to match what is human intuition. So if we can combine that, that's in the assistance, augmentation, and collaboration with human workers, these systems that are extremely efficient, scalable, and personalizable, then what we end up doing is developing collaborative AI applications and leveraging the strengths then of both the human and the machine. It's really important. The characteristics of collaborative AI include the fact that collaborative AI are not focused on, say, the object of the outcome, like a piece of art that an artist might be doing using an AI graphics tool, or a revised resume, or a job description, or even a complete handbook for HR stakeholder management. It is focused on the human, the actual human side of what it is we're trying to understand. So that human-centric design, the fact that collaborative systems don't run off and do something and then come back later on and tell you, but they actually operate in real time with the operator of the system, in this case, the human resource professional, that they are designed around augmenting, again, as we talked about, the human element and not replacing it. And that, in fact, the learning models for collaborative AI solutions aren't just from the data itself and the reduction or extension of that data, but from the human feedback that's provided by the cooperator, the collaborator. So ultimately, the characteristics of a collaborative AI system being human centric, real time, augmented, and that these systems learn from human feedback really tend to be applied in situations that ultimately enhance the human capabilities in the HR space. Quite different than generative AI. Some examples that exist, for example, in the tools, generally speaking, in collaborative AI include virtual assistants. Now, these are becoming more and more sophisticated. The chatbots, the voice assistants that you see built into websites and phone systems. These are all just very simple examples, but they are nonetheless examples that show AI-driven applications that help employees with simple tasks. Mostly they are interactive gatekeepers that branch questions to necessary pools of information, but true virtual assistants that we see developing into our handheld devices and our Siri and Alexa and Bixby type devices today are actually helping employees with tasks like actual scheduling, information retrieval, and customer service. We see, of course, AI in creative processes. We've already mentioned the graphic design work that's being done by artists, but tools that assist the designers and writers in generating content may go a little bit further by even suggesting ideas or even co-creating artwork that's contributed to partly by the human collaborator. So we see this today in, again, in transactional processes. It is sampled here and there on creative processes, but we don't see any really standalone solutions as yet of collaborative AI because they are not really things that get patched to an existing system. They are actually embedded and built into, if not the basis of, new HR solutions. And we see this as a rise or an emerging technology in the Web3 era, which of course is a couple of years off, but we're starting to see things like blockchain-based solutions and 5G, 6G protocols and new personal data security applications built into the new HR suite and HCM solutions that are coming down the marketplace here, where collaborative AI will be embedded and part of those solutions. So we're not going to patch our way to Web3, and that's a distinguishing factor of collaborative AI solutions. And so what we will actually see, for example, are new decision support systems that analyze the data, present the recommendations to the human decision makers, especially in light of key performance indicators like financial forecasting or supply chain management. More importantly, they'll evaluate perhaps even uh, the actual reality of supply chains themselves, not only in the supply management line, but also in the operations of the vendors that are subcontracting components to a master vendor or primary integrator. These AI type solutions will be working with side by side the human collaborators. So in general, these are what we're looking at. Now, more in the HR space are collaborative AI tools that I'm just giving an example today of enhancing recruiting. I'm going to look at recruiting. I might look at learning and management systems. But this is a big one because the competitive space for workforce talent today is exhaustive. And the amount of information and the amount of resumes and applications that are running around out there on the Ethernet these days, whether it's out on the web or it's posted on social media, requires a digestion of that information well beyond the human capacity. So using AI and collaborative platforms such as AI powered applicant tracking systems and chatbots to interact with candidates is obviously a fundamental use of collaborative AI tools. But then real-time collaboration with the AI in actually performing candidate assessments that have normally been associated with multiple interview processes is a perfect application for collaborative AI. And in that case, the human collaborator would be evaluating the suggestions and assessments performed by the AI, and then feeding back their intuitive interpretation of that information so that the AI can then iterate that information. Ultimately, the goal being to quickly identify and recruit a new member of our workforce in record time. the use of conventional ATS today still has an acquisition to hire period of almost 26 days, longer for more difficult positions to fill, less time for less skilled type positions. But we're going to see all of that change in the future, particularly as we look at more customized pathways for employee development within our organizations. Um, I guess the one thing that really is important is to identify for your use, if you were going to go back to your offices and say, let's have a collaborative AI initiative because we intend to develop a new system for recruiting. Now, they exist, but they don't exist in use. This idea of a real time matching system. Some companies have done this where they've utilized job boards to drive resume traffic to their proprietary sites, which then give them the ability to match people in real time to their criteria. Well, that numerical analysis is pretty statistical as it's been done in the past. But with the collaborative AI and the interactive interfaces that are designed around that human centric application, the HR recruiter can then do their own inquiries on the database. And then, as new opportunities arise, especially in large organizations that are multinational or have many different locations, the AI itself could look at positions that are opening up as a result of retirements or self terminations, as the case may be, and recommend in real time candidates to replace those individuals. It is a new process. It is no longer batch oriented. It is no longer a discrete issue that a position opens up and then we go to the job boards and we start looking for somebody. It's the idea that the company has the ability now to look to fill all positions at all times, regardless of what might cause the openness of that position. So, collaborative AI offers some really important capabilities that will ultimately streamline not only the acquisition, but also the onboarding and the successful onboarding of that individual or that team of individuals that are hired. Again, AI will allow us to customize the onboarding programs and personalize those. We can utilize virtual onboarding assistants, which would bring standardization of the information to be delivered, and then a check and balance system that's best managed through, say, a learning management tool to bring on new people, make sure that their paperwork is filled out, make sure that they're familiar with the core policies of the organization, so forth. And then, of course, beyond that, in terms of workforce development, looking at AI driven learning paths for the new hires. Nobody rarely comes in knowing everything that they need to know to do their job. There's certainly an acclimation period, but AI enhanced learning management systems with learning paths customized for new hires will streamline that onboarding and that time to become productive within the organization. Some of the collaborative technologies, again, that are available for onboarding purposes would be AI mentors and digital twins of key people that they're interacting with. Um, this is very, very important because the level of interaction of human beings as human beings can be more efficient, more focused um, on things that are critical for that person, and the things that are less in need of human element can be taken care of through, as I said, AI mentors and other kinds of applications that allow the employee to collaborate immediately with the organization. You can imagine how important that would be as well in remote and hybrid working solutions. Mentoring is a very successful process, and AI mentors not necessarily advocating exclusively an AI mentor, but certainly an AI enhanced process for mentoring where there's both a human and a collaborative AI element would be a very powerful combination, both bringing people into the organization, but also bringing them up to speed within the organization. AI powered feedback loops. Again, you don't have to wait for a manager to make the observation about a person's um, performance on the job when the AI is capable of monitoring the key performance indicators and providing that information back into a feedback loop in the system. And then, of course, making certain recommendations with the collaborating human resource professional. And then, of course, the impact on employee engagement and retention by knowing. At this point, I've seen some HR systems, for example, that predict the likelihood of attrition at an individual level, but it's really invalid because it's based on static information at the time of hire and, of course, how long they've stayed with the organization, which doesn't prove anything. It's strictly a numeric um, that some people might hold to that says, hey, this person's been with us for 3 months. This is kind of their tenuous period now that they're adjusting into their role. And historically, we see people that are not going to stay beyond this, maybe another 30, 60 days. That's not sufficient. What we're looking at in terms of engagement and retention is AI powered feedback loops providing really detailed real time information back into the management structure for decision making and if necessary, intervention. Then we have transforming the whole learning and development with generative AI of our workforce. Again, personalized learning experiences. Um, Higher education is playing with this a little bit, but accreditation standards and core curriculum define what really education needs to be at both the K through 12 as well as the post secondary educational levels. But in corporate training, jobs require a variety, a mesh of skills, and some of those skills are very hard, and some of those skills are very soft. You can create modules using a generative AI enhanced solution so that the experience for the student is much more attuned to their learning speed. Not everybody learns at the same pace. They're learning methodology. Some people learn by doing tactily, some people learn by just hearing, some people by seeing, some people by a combination of those things. And so you can, with an AI enhanced learning and management system, really create a great tuning fork, so to speak, a great way to build that workforce around personalized learning experiences that the AI would then assemble. You don't even need the instructor or a clerical individual to sit there and assemble these modules when the AI is certainly capable of doing that. And the technology is there to do this today. We just haven't seen any real products released in the LMS learning management systems or the CMS content management systems area that go beyond simple material development like graphics or text. So AI driven content creation is critical for these training modules as well because heretofore most material that's delivered by instructors, unless there's been some sort of master syllabus put together and content, is usually limited to the experience and knowledge of the individual who's presenting. But with AI driven content creation, it can go out and draw information from all sorts of sources uh, around the world and incorporate those as they're meant to be incorporated by who? By the human collaborator. At some point, you still need human collaboration in this process. And so collaborative AI takes on a role here in content creation. And then finally, the system itself provides for real time skills assessment. The AI driven collaboration and learning actually enhances the tools for peer learning. This is what's really great. I can give two different people a set of personalized instruction in a very similar role, if not identical roles on different shifts. And based on the AI powered feedback loops that we're getting from the interaction of the coursework, the courseware, with one employee, that information can then be fed back into the coursework of the other employee. And you can imagine where that would go in terms of the artificially intelligent content management system overall, improving the collaboration of peers, even though they may not even see each other. They might just happen to work on different shifts. So it's really got great promise for the collaborative works among teams in building these new learning management systems for our workforce development efforts. Adaptive learning platforms, too. We might find that a person, as they're going through a program, has a significant deficiency either in reading or in arithmetic and needs additional work like that. Well, AI powered adaptive learning platforms would provide refined curricula on the fly in real time, obviously notifying whoever's handling education and training within the HR department, their supervisor or their manager, and whoever else has a need to know that this person's program of development is changing or being tweaked or modified. Whether or not the human being intercedes and actually has to approve that is, in this particular instance, secondary. What's more important is that the learning styles are adjusted by the AI, not by necessarily the individual. In other words, that the AI recognizes that the person has a greater dependency on audio processing, it may enhance the curriculum to provide more audio instruction as opposed to just visual instruction. Some systems would react differently in terms of something tactile, where it might recommend a certain exercise in a laboratory or on a piece of office machinery or equipment. It may utilize simulators. Uh, for example, in a shop floor environment, to exercise that individual's skills around a collaborative robot in a work cell that might be doing assembly or something like that. So these adaptive learning platforms that are based on AI become a collaborative tool and therefore is capable of meeting those earlier characteristics that we talked about, that they're focused on the human being, they're responding to the human being, and they're adapting to the human being that they're training. Again, in this particular case, I would cite as a reasonable example that idea of a modern work center involving human beings and collaborative robots in an assembly line. And the collaborative robot technology is, of course, well proven. It's been out there for about a decade. And in that case, these are where robots are doing a portion of the process in the work cell, and human beings are doing another portion of the work. And this is shown to have increased quality control immensely in manufacturing processes. So in this particular case, the example of AI and corporate learning that is real time and adapting to the student in the program, it's all delivered, of course, online, um, would be early in the program, adapting to company policies, for example, stakeholder handbooks and things like that that you might have, or familiarizing them quickly with how to utilize the company's self-maintenance portal on payroll. It's instructional in focus, but it's one where content creation in the LMS space is just a huge time consumer. And again, if the AI is creating most of this for you, drawing on the information that it's getting from your vendors, then you have a very effective AI-driven collaborative learning system. So that's a very practical approach and a great initiative. So those are just two examples, right? We're talking about recruitment and learning and development. The key here is that there are issues of balancing the benefits with the challenges. Obviously, we can talk all day long about the efficiency, the scalability, the personalization that AI affords us. And we experience this many times in a week if we're calling into some voice interactive telephone systems, or we're working with some new applications that people have put into our ERP or our HCM systems. Uh, that that doesn't need to be belabored. There is, of course, an investment and a return on that investment that should be calculated. But a lot of the tools today are wild west tools. Let's face it. There's a lot of need for refinement. There's a lot of need for um, resilience, there's issues of bias that have to be addressed. And these things are what we see coming up in the challenges section of what needs to be balanced as we're deciding these tools. Data privacy, of course, is first and foremost. The issue is whether or not these systems that are gathering all this information about me and my digital twin, so to speak, my existence, really is that complying with the laws that we have now in the United States? We don't have a federal law protecting personally identifying information beyond HIPAA, and that's even very limited compared to the GDPR that's in existence over in Europe and secondarily with its own identifying program in Switzerland. The integration of these rapidly developing systems, particularly if they are self-maintaining, self-modifying, are highly complex, and they require real architectural expertise that many software development people just do not have. Um, I would remind the listeners here today that the software engineering industry is one of the only engineering fields that is not regulated by state licensure. And if we see anything evolving in the 21st century, it will probably be a licensing of software architects, especially as we get into these highly complex and advanced systems that involve a lot of autonomy in the way in which the systems are designed. Which brings us to the third challenge that I'd like to highlight, which are the ethical considerations. Is it appropriate, for example, years ago, to have used something like a DISC profile in order to predict and utilize it as a tool in the hiring process? And it was determined that it should not be used, nor should profiling. And in fact, profiling was outlawed. Um, so that doesn't mean that today, without regulation of the AI space, which right now, again, is like the Wild West, ethical considerations should not be ignored because they're coming. And whether they're going to come through regulation, and of course, you can't really legislate morality, we're going to have the education and the maintenance of that education among HR professionals that are responsible for information management, really riding shotgun on the development of new AI systems. And so, in general, we can see that these advantages and these challenges are very significant. They're very deep. They are really unresolved as of today. And I'm talking here on August the 20th of 2024. But forward thinking companies can invest in these technologies and really plan for the future trends as we see them in AI. What are these? Well, I'll summarize very quickly with the remaining time that I have. When you're looking at implementing AI in HR processes, and you want to take into consideration that balance of benefits and challenges, here are the basic 10 steps I would recommend. One, identify actual HR needs and objectives. Assess that in light of your existing HR processes. This is a typical systems approach that we would take to all HCM type solutions. But then number three, again, we're in the Wild West. There hasn't been a maturation of the material or the tools yet. Choosing the right AI solutions today is pretty much a like selecting, I don't know, an operating system back in the days of DOS versus CPM, or Windows versus Mac OS versus Linux, or the or the Xerox graphic interface. We're too early in the development stage to say this is the company. It's very, very hard to do number three today. So it's experimental, but it takes investment. And that early investment and early adoption is critical to being at the leading edge and really getting your gain share of the market that's coming. And what market am I talking about? Not AI software development market, workforce. In order to find the right people, to reduce the risk of poor hiring choices, to reduce the amount of attrition from the workforce, to do better planning and better management of your workforce, AI is a critical tool that has to be an arrow in your quiver. Fourth, data collection and preparation. What is relevant? Who owns it? Is this information that is actually better rest with the owner of that data, which is the individual employee, or is it something that we're gathering as the employer itself? Then pilot test. There's no substitute for pilot testing. Never go live with anything. Any systems engineering person will tell you that. It's great to do pilot testing and work with it. Pilot testing is critical, and comprehensive pilot testing, again, using traditional software testing techniques is not what we're talking about. With Web3, with where collaborative AI is real time and involves the HR component, the actual user of that information, we're going to see a completely different set of testing criteria, quality control. Of course, a commitment to training and change management. You can't roll these things out without having the people be adept at accepting change and building a resilient, agile workforce around a proactive change mindset is critical, and the commitment to training and that investment in education is critical. And then, of course, rolling this out for full scale implementation goes without further discussion. Then monitor, evaluate, and optimize the processes that's engaging the tool. Ensure compliance and ethical standards. Compliance with what? Well, there's there's some very good studies out there that have evaluated the 193 or so members of the UN that are committed to um, compliance with technology and technology standards, especially as they impact the human element. Certainly, the World Economic Forum and its Presidio principles on data ownership is another good guideline till these things are legislated in countries around the world, including the United States. But compliance with regulatory is certainly there. There's a number of different laws on the books already that you must be compliant with when you're dealing with information, but not necessarily with the processing of that information. And again, I think without too little debate, licensure of software architects and engineers is coming. And then finally, number 10, monitor and maintain the system over the long haul and ensure it performs as expected. So steps to implementing an AI, pretty simple. How do we do this? Well, the call to action is for HR leaders. I'm part of an organization that's very proud now for 44 years of working with the future of HR leadership, particularly as it's impacted by and impacting technology in the workforce. I can only say this as the basic call to action. Everything you've heard here today is not speculative, it's emergent, it's practical, it's going to change the way in which we actually do most of our HR practices between now and probably 2030. Don't think the window is much beyond that to see the disruption window that we're at. But companies really do need to make that investment today in order to maintain the greatest lead for the most resilient, agile, and responsive workforce that they need for the future. With that, I can only encourage all of you to embrace AI because it is the future, not only of everything, but more specifically in our bailiwick, the future of work and the future of HR. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dennis. Luckily, today I have no trouble giving my full attention to each of you presenting. I really wasn't so aware of collaborative AI and how it is being approached and thought about. Additionally, the way you outlined how it can be used in recruiting to speed up the sourcing of candidates, highlight roles opening up and who could fill them, and even having coworkers from different shifts benefiting from one another's work without even knowing it. Wow, those are some pretty amazing use cases. It has been an eye opening summit. It's been so great to have you on here today. And I just want to give you one final huge thank you. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And with that, we are going to wrap things up here. Right now, we have the third and final $300 Amazon gift card to give away. Again, you do need to be present to win. So let's hope our final winner is indeed here. Drum roll, please. Third gift card is going out to Nelson Singleton from California. A huge congrats to all three of our winners. And just to recap, we have the first gift card going out to Melissa Davis from Maryland. Second was going to Clay Farah from Oklahoma. And third to Nelson Singleton from California. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after today's webinar. And with that, on behalf of Future B2B and the team at SmartBrief, I want to thank all of our speakers today for making this webinar possible and for being here with us today. And a big special thank you to all of you for attending. I hope you've all gotten some interesting ideas and tips, and maybe you're leaving excited and ready to take some next steps on how to use AI in the workplace going forward. A quick reminder about this Smart Brief AI Awards. If you are interested, hop over into that Handouts tab, snag the link to enter, and check out the full contest details. And if you have enjoyed today's session, I invite you to register for the upcoming sessions in this series. We have AI and the future of IT, tech, and cybersecurity on September 10th at 12 p.m. Eastern, AI and the future of retail, September 12th, 12 p.m. Eastern, and finally, AI and the future of education on September 19th, again at 12 p.m. Eastern. If you are on today's webinar and you would like to chat with us about presenting on a future summit, EcoCast, or MegaCast webinar, we would absolutely love to hear from you. You can reach out to us at connect@futureb2b.com. Alrighty, that's all, folks. I hope to see you all again on the next session for the AI Impact series. And until then, I wish you all an absolutely magical rest of your day. Take care.